you asked me about it, I would think that if the cannabis was legalized, then that would lower that of the presence of other drugs in it, because they know they have the freedom to make it without any other complications or any other additions of any other drugs.
Yeah, definitely. That's what I meant about, like, you would have the option to buy something where you know it's not gonna hurt your health, etc. But then again, that could also be an issue, because if people know that it's safe, more people are gonna smoke, and if you're already, let's say that you're having a bad time, right?
Yeah.
Then it could somehow become an escape way of that. So that if you see people doing bad in school, they might not be doing well in the family. Then they could somehow use it to kind of
Release
escape.
stress, like
Yeah.
yeah, like go into a different reality.
Yeah, it's just like painkillers though. Like when we see people getting on medicine, they can somehow start to abusing that, and they could it can be addicting, like mentally addicting.
That's why we mentioned that it should be just prescribed.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it should be prescribed. I also think that
I think
the
that's
recreational route.
I think that's the first step.
Yeah,
Getting it prescribed, because then the
kind of
government
test it out.
Yeah, the government can see what sort of effects it has on the economy, etc.
Yeah.
And like whether people will abuse it or not.
Yeah. So when talking about cannabis abuse, I think it's a real thing, and I think it's not discussed a lot because it's like a negative aspect of it. But it can be a gateway to just sort of let loose, and I believe that could hurt, for instance, school. Because we see that already even in Denmark, that people would be skipping school to smoke weed. Like I remember, I think it was right before lockdown, probably 3 months ago. I came into school, and then 2 guys got caught smoking hash during the break.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, we just walked in the school, and then in front of us, we just see 2 people being caught by a teacher who called the principal, and that is the worst aspect of cannabis.
Exactly. That's other than the fact it's addicting, then they shouldn't be able, like, they shouldn't have the access to do that. That's why the first step is for it to be prescribed. As we said, so the government can see whether it's being abused or not. Like, obviously there's going to be some people going to the doctors thinking, oh yeah, I've got a lot of stress and all that there, but they have all their the doctors have all the education to back it up. They might recommend them to psychologists or whatever instead of being prescribed cannabis.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. That's a really good point, to be honest. That's a really good point. But also, we researched it a bit before, and we looked into the situation in the Netherlands, and they have these kind of coffee cafes, where it's just a place where just like a bar, but for cannabis. And the way that they kind of counter the school problem that we talk about is that those cafes are not open until school is done, so around 4 o'clock, because they know that if it's open during school hours, then people might be skipping school to get high. Yeah. And that.
But whenever you think about that, there you talk about Amsterdam in particular. But it's open. You're allowed to smoke cannabis out in the open anyway. So do you not think, like, obviously that would be better for a cafe, but for a student, instead of just going to a cafe, do you not think they would just go down by the river and smoke or whatever?
Definitely.
So, but yeah, it definitely restricts options.
Yeah, I feel like if we had such places like cafes for people to go smoke, I feel like it would become more of a social thing. And I think that if you smoke it in a social gathering, for instance, right?
Yeah.
I feel that would be less tempting for people to get addicted to it, because they're gonna be smoking with their friends after school. But then again, if you have a bad friend group, then it would be easy to like get caught up and go down by the river and just get high during class hours, and that would be so destructive. Like, that would be awful.
Yeah, that's like something I've witnessed, that people do skip class. As we said, that we've witnessed people getting caught over it, and we know people from other classes, not our class, we're a good class. We know people from other classes that have actually gone in between breaks of classes, 10 minutes breaks, and then just smoke a little bit just so they can relieve their stress throughout the class. And I don't really think that there's what should be happening.
Yeah, but I also feel like that could be misinformation, because people are educated about it. And
Yeah.
if you could somehow have a healthy culture around it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would say that we have that about alcohol because we don't see people. At least it's really rare situations
Yeah.
where people will get drunk during class because that's something that they know they can do after school. They can do it at home. Like you can have
Mhm.
parties at home, and it's kind of like a healthy. So of course you can argue that the alcohol culture in Denmark and Scandinavia can be kind of a bit too much, but I feel like it's somewhat a healthy culture and people are educated about it.
Mm-hmm.
The people know
Yeah,
the.
that's what I was about to say. Like me coming to Denmark, I being in school, I've been educated about like in biology, for example, the effects of alcohol, what it has on your brain, etc.
Mhm.
But we've never really been taught about the effects of cannabis and why you shouldn't do that. So I think there should be more focus from a school's perspective on that.
Yeah.
Because like there you get stuff like, as we said, alcohol concentration lessons,
Mhm.
and then also like sex education, which is a necessity, but you don't really get more about life, if you want, if you will, because no matter what or who you are, drugs is going to come up eventually.
Definitely. I don't think there's a single. Okay, definitely, but of course, but I was.
Yeah,
I was saying,
there's going to be more people that come across drugs than not.
Yeah, exactly. And if they were somehow educated so that they would know what would happen if you do drugs, I feel like if you were somehow educated about that, I think that less people would do something that they regret.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times people are gonna end up having a bad time because they're not sure what they're taking.
Mm.
And I feel like that's not only about cannabis. That's in general, like just the effects about different drugs on your health because people are not really educated about that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I also think there's going to be way less alcoholics in the future than there are now because we're somehow used to the culture and we know what's happening
Mm-hmm.
and we're educated about it. And if we could somehow transform that with cannabis.
But do you not think it's in regards to alcohol like a tradition, like with when you graduate your third year of high school, then you have this studivon thing where you drive around in a wagon for 12 hours or something and then drink till your head falls off.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's just more of a tradition thing than an addiction, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
Like I feel like that's more of a problem in Denmark. Like obviously you have the alcoholics that can't live without the extra volume of alcohol in their blood, but I feel like for younger people it's more like a social thing.
Yeah.
Alcohol and culture.